You can start, sir. Sir, you
Can I
can.
start now? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So Basir, I think in the last class, the first class that I had on 5th of January, okay, last Sunday, we discussed basically, I think, trying to provide an overview of India and the world, India, how India is becoming a global player and how the both things are interconnected and interdependent to some extent, and also the globalist view also. In Unit 1, we covered evolution of India's worldview, how it emerged. Like today, we talk about India as a part of the global family, like our Prime Minister used to say in the last G20 summit, quoting from Upanishads, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole world is a village, like one family. And also, you must be reading in the many newspapers and articles how India is trying to be in a genuine and meaningful way, like Viswa Mitra or Viswa Bandhu. Viswa means the world, Bandhu means like a friend of the world. I'm giving examples like even though we have differences, but we don't convert differences into this. We do not convert disputes into differences, as our foreign minister Jaisankar used to say. For example, during Biden's time, during Obama's time, during Trump's once time, we had problems with Iran, but we still have got good relations. At the same time, we have got very robust relationship with Israel. Where our prime minister is in touch with both President Putin of Russia and also President Zelensky of Ukraine to find some middle ground so that the war can end in Ukraine, which will be good for the world. So I think there are many examples. We have got very good relations with Israel. We also have good relationship also with Palestinians. So it is not like a zero-sum game. If you need to be friends with A, you have to alienate B. So it is possible that you can be friends with both A and B. So I think that is one of the strengths of India, and that has evolved since 1947, since India's year of independence. In Unit 2, approaches to the India's foreign policy, we talk about different theoretical paradigms, realist theory, neo-realist theory, national interest, survival, self-help, Atmanirbhar. We talked about decision-making approaches, how India always pursues rational model, rational actor model, group thinking like in a group, not taking a solo decisions, and clearly keeping a bifurcation between the civil-military relationship. We also talked about different basic objectives, core objectives of foreign policy, friendship with all, with look West policy, look East policies. And we also discussed about determinants. What are the elements? What are the factors that determines foreign policy, both within, internally, domestic level, as well as at external levels? Okay? How we have tried to cast a big net in terms of having meaningful relationship with wide variety of countries from Europe to Southeast Asia, East Asia, Central Asia, West Asia, Latin America, Africa, and many places. And then we moved on to Unit 4, decision-making institutions with special reference to MEA, Ministry of External Affairs, who are the prime instrument for operationalizing, also for implementing the different goals. Like in MEA, we have got America desk, East Asia desk, Africa desk. They take care of the micro and macro level foreign policies. NSC, National Security Council, like for example, Ajit Doval, he's the current National Security Advisors. Before that, Shiv Shankar Menon was there. During Vajpayee's time, Brajesh Mishra used to be there. And a lot of times they do a lot of work that a lot of people don't know, because they do also a lot of classified works, which it is not in the public domain. They also pursue a lot of not only track 1 diplomacy, but also track 2 diplomacy. Because, in foreign policy implementations, many things can be done and achieved through a non-governmental levels, through track 2, okay? Like, for example, when Vajpayee made that historic bus trip to Lahore, that was made possible through a sustained track 2 dialogues, okay? So that is one example. The Agra summit between Parvez Musharraf and Vajpayee later on also was an example of track 2. So there has been many, many examples when track 2 diplomacy has also helped as a part of the MES outer ring. Parliament House, PMO, Prime Minister's Office. During Nehru's time, the Prime Minister was basically concentrated around one or few people, Haksar, VP Dhar, etc. But I think later on, during Rajiv Gandhi years, Narasimha Rao onwards, Gujral, Devgowda, Vajpayee onwards, I think PMO has become like an institution. There are hundreds of people working there in different levels, different things. So they formulate that, they prepare the policy papers, and then they forward that to the Prime Minister for his perusal, and then the whole thing is being processed. The different parliamentary committees, Public Accounts Committee, Foreign Affairs Committees, I think they also provide very useful inputs, useful feedback in the formulation. So the basic point that I'm trying to make is there are multiple actors, there are multiple stakeholders. Everybody tries to chip in, everybody tries to put something on the bucket in terms of foreign policy decision making, and ultimately in a cumulative way, a foreign policy objective is made, and then that decision is being implemented. You can see that in terms of buying subsidized oil from Ukraine by the current government. You can see that during Dr. Manmohan Singh's time, UPA-1 and also UPA-2, in terms of signing between US and India, the Indo-US civil nuclear deal. So there are many, many examples over the last many years where you have seen the PMO, the NSC, the MEA, the different committees, all the stakeholders, they play a very important role. Today, I think in Unit 5, I think the policy development process, the role of political parties, pressure groups, media, social movements, NGO, business, diaspora, think tanks. For example, the political parties, of course, you are right. You can make a safe assumption that the ruling party, for example, currently, I think the BJP has a minority of 240 seats, but along with other partner parties, the NDA, National Democratic Alliance, they have a government. So the different political parties, they play important role. Not only the ruling parties, the opposition parties also very important role. I remember once I was writing a research paper on Indo-US nuclear deal, and I did go to the Parliament library and made use of lot of the debate that took place in the Parliament, very extensive debate, very comprehensive debate by all political parties, the left, the right, the center, in the Lok Sabha and also in the Rajya Sabha. I think that definitely gives you a perspective. So it's not right to say that only the opposition parties' job is to oppose. I think sometimes they also come up with some very constructive ideas, suggestions, etc., and which I think the government takes it in good stride. Okay, so the ultimate output, the ultimate product should be very much refined based on everybody's feedback. So I think that definitely makes it much more solid, much more foolproof, and much more enriching, I would say. So the role of political parties are very important, and the discussions, our parliamentary system provides that. The Speaker of the Lok Sabha and the Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, they do give a lot of leeways, a lot of flexibilities to all political parties to air their views, and ultimately all those things are taken into account, into consideration, and ultimately a foreign policy objective is formed. Okay. So, for example, when Narasimha Rao in 91 and his then finance minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, I'm talking about 1991 to 96, those 5 years, that was a very formative phase. Why it was formative? Because that was the end of the Cold War in 1989-90. And there was a lot of uncertainty as to how the world is going to shape up, how India is going to react to that. Should we follow a reactive policy or should we follow a proactive policy? There was illusion about that, there was doubt about that. And we followed and embarked on the policy of LPG, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. There was a lot of opposition to Rao and Singh in those days, but they stuck to it because they tried to convince the parliament and also the Indian public at large that this is in the interest of India, that in the long term, this is going to be very helpful. So maybe it's like a policy of short-term pain and long-term gain. In the same way, the pressure groups also play an important role. Okay, in the pressure group, for example, you must have seen in the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, we have got like Indo-Japan Friendship Group, India-Russia Friendship Group, India-US friendship groups. I think those are also in the process of facilitating, in the process of promoting bilateral, multilateral initiatives. So there are even the industrial houses like Ambani, Adani, Tatas, Birlas, okay, at various times since independence, they play also very, very important role in terms of pressure groups. It is not necessary that the government listen to all of that, but definitely it helps them to fine tune and to what is good for the country, what is how best we can expand the different areas and different uh, levels of that. The media also plays very important role. When we say media, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, even in the 90s, I would say, we have got print media like the newspapers, Times of India, Hindustan Times, Hindu, Statesman, Deccan Herald, even the regional newspapers, okay, Anand Bazar Patrika, Matrubhumi, I mean, I can give you many, many examples, okay, they play a very important role, okay. All of those views are important in shaping and in fine tuning the foreign policy goals, okay. So it is not necessary they always go along with the governmental views, okay. Sometimes they have their own views, okay, because they think, and different newspapers of different denominations, they come up with different ideas in the editorial page, in the editorial page articles, okay. So all of those things are important. So that is the print media, and print media is widespread. It is still there, okay, even in the age of today's world. Lot of, like when I get up in the morning, I also read all the newspapers which are also available in the digital forms. And also this print media, like I went to the other day to IDSA, Institute of Defense and Strategic Studies. They get all the newspaper from Pakistan, okay, Dawn, all the newspaper from Pakistan Times, okay, and they're trying to decipher what is the foreign policy decision making in Pakistan that might impact India, or in Bangladesh, how it impacts us, or in Nepal or Bhutan or Maldives, etc. So that is the print media. The electronic medias that came up after the Asian Games in '82, and later on it became more popular in the '90s, etc. All the televisions, NDTV, News 18, you must have seen all the newspaper outlets, Lok Sabha TV, Sansad TV, Doordarshan, all kinds of TV networks. I think GTV, they also play very important role. Some lot of times I too participate, a lot of the experts, lot of the diplomats, the current diplomats and former diplomats, they also air their views. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't agree. Sometimes we express our own views and own opinions the way we deem it appropriate. But those things definitely help us. But to discuss about how the other day somebody asked me to about the role of Indian diaspora in Canada, role of diaspora in US, which is a very important phenomenon, and how they shape the foreign policy objectives of both India as well as the country that they are currently staying. Social movements that take place from time to time, Narmada Bachao Andolan, I can give you many examples, Chipko movement, they also sometimes they go into the foreign policy discourse. NGOs, non-government organizations, both in India, even outside, Amnesty International, and many, many NGOs that we Center for Policy Developments. We have got a lot of think tanks in India, for example, as I just said, IDSA, Manohar Parrikar Institute of Defense and Strategic Studies, Vivekananda International Foundation, ICWA, Indian Council for World Affairs, Sapru House. We have got Tinmurti, Prime Minister's Museum and Library. So we have got many, many think tanks in Delhi and in many other places. Maulana Azad Institute of Asian Studies in Kolkata, institutes in Bangalore, Chennai, but a lot of them are available here in Delhi, where we do they do discuss, they come up with occasional news articles, papers, viewpoints, etc., etc. And I think that also helps. They invite foreign dignitaries, they listen to them. Diaspora, that is a very important element. Just a few days ago, we had a very successful diaspora conference that takes place every other year in important cities of India. This year it took place in capital of Odisha, in Bhubaneswar. Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, they talked about the issues, the context, how instead of becoming, remember 30, 40 years ago, People going to countries like in US or Canada, they used to be called like a brain drain, like all the elite people, all the intelligent people going to the rich countries. But later on, people say this is not a case of simply brain drain, but rather brain bank of India, because they also provide important helps, important feedback, important input to India's development, India's infrastructures, India's R&D, research and developments. How they also, it's like a win-win proposition, both for the sender country as well as for the recipient country, for the host country. So instead of becoming a brain drain, how this diasporic population in many countries in the world, they have become brain bank or brain gain, or rather brain recirculation. So they have been not only been successful in business or in all the different kind of enterprises, in academics, even in political aspects. I mean, the interesting thing is Kamala Harris, the current vice president who contested for presidency, okay, and she lost, of course. She was from Indian origin. Her mother is from Chennai, from Tamil Nadu, who went in the 70s or 60s, I forgot, to pursue her PhD in Berkeley. And the interesting thing is, even under Donald Trump too, and who is going to take the oath of office next Monday on 20th of January, the vice president-elect, J.D. Vance, his wife, Usha Chilkuri, Usha is from Guntur, from Andhra. So Indian diaspora is everywhere. It is in the Democratic Party, it is in the Republican Party. I was in Singapore a couple of months ago. I met the president of Singapore. He is from Tamil origin. Okay? There are a number of ministers in Singapore who are from Indian origin. There are a lot of parliament members. I met a person, I felt he's from Punjab, wearing a big turban, and he is from Singapore. You go to Fiji, you go to many places around the world. In Kenya, there are many people over there who are from Indian origin. They have made a mark on their own merit. And this year, I think in the US, for the first time, instead of 5, last time, we have got 6 members who are elected for the US Congress in the lower house. Okay? They call it a samosa caucus. So the number is growing. 30, 40 years ago, the number was pretty low. So I think when we'll discuss more about diaspora, I can give a lot more information about that. So definitely diaspora across the board, whether it is in Guyana or Trinidad, Tobago, anywhere at the global levels, I think they play very important roles. I think no wonder in most places they are being described as a model minorities, because they bring substantial knowledge, ideas, expertise, which is a big help not only to the country that they've decided to settle down, but also to the country that they originally come from. I think the next unit is like India's foreign policy, an overview. I discussed that, I think, last time also, how India's policy has evolved over the years, how India's policy has evolved over the years from 1947 to contemporary phase. And at the beginning of 1947, I think, when we had got only 300 plus million people, it was Prime Minister Nehru was a very idealistic, romanticized person. He deliberately chose the policy of non-alignment, okay, not to ally with any of the big powers at that time in the Cold War, neither with US in a very overt way, nor with Soviet Union. So it was, you can call it like idealistic phase, okay? But after, and he also tried to reach out to China, to Prime Minister Zhou Enlai through 1955 Bandung Summit, okay? But in 1962, definitely was a setback during the India-China war. Then he died, of course, in 1964. Then we have got Lal Bahadur Shastri for 64 to 66, when the war with Pakistan took place in 65. And then with his demise in Tashkent in January 11, which was just, I think, yesterday, that was the anniversary of Lal Bahadur Shastri. Then Mrs. Gandhi took over. So when she was the prime minister, okay, there are a lot of issues in terms of economic stagnation, in terms of drought, the food crisis in India at that particular time. But she gradually asserted herself in the leadership position. And then we have got the war of 1971 with Bangladesh. when Mrs. Gandhi showed her leadership, when she did not get any help from other countries to resolve the crisis in then Pakistan, which was of two parts, West Pakistan and East Pakistan. Then ultimately India intervened in that war that ultimately led to the birth of a new country called Bangladesh. Okay? From 62 to 91, I think if you describe this particular 30-year period, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of on again, off again kind of thing took place. You can call it like more like a self-help approach. So India had to sign this agreement with Soviet Union of India, Russia, Soviet Union Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation. India also received a lot of aid from USA during the China war from John F. Kennedy, who was the president at that time, later on from President Johnson. During PL 480, because of the food crisis, they provided a lot of wheat to India. Also, America provided a lot of technical expertise to India, sent a Nobel laureate, Norman Borlaug, who heralded the Green Revolution in India. Later on, we tried to extend that one Green Revolution to White Revolution in milk and dairy products, and also to the Blue Revolution, trying to harness all the marine resources, because we have a long coastline on the west coast, the Arabian Sea, down under in the south, Indian Ocean. Then on the east, we have got the Bay of Bengal. So the Blue Revolution, taking advantage of the marine resources, trying to make the optimal use of it. The White Revolution, making it a dairy capital, dairy hub, okay? And also, of course, the Green Revolution. And now India is in a position where instead of being a paucity or a deficit, we have got surplus. So today we are in a position where we are exporting a lot of agricultural products, the surplus stuff to countries in Africa, to other countries in Russia. When I was in Russia as a professor in Moscow, I went to a supermarket and I was very surprised. All the rice brands, including Basmati, everything. So it is written that all are imported from India. Okay, not only just, we thought like mostly India, you see when I was in Japan or in US or many other countries, whenever I've traveled, most of the things you see like India is known like textiles, Indian tea, very, very popular. I remember 30, 40 years ago, I went to a store in New York. There's a long queue. So people are very crazy to buy India's HMT watch, Titan watches, Sumit grinders, food grinders. So I remember that. This was, I'm talking about 1980s, etc. So we have definitely come a long way. Since 1991, as I said before, with the onset of the globalization, liberalization, I think now the policy is becoming more pragmatic policy. The non-alignment has been fine-tuned to non-alignment 2.0 with the addition called quote-unquote strategic autonomy. Of course, we'll follow the fundamental principles of non-alignment, but at the same time, we'll also not hesitate to take a decision which may be away from a traditional quote-unquote non-alignment discourse. Okay, so it is not necessary that we have to be only beholden to North Korea or Cuba. So there are examples where we can disagree with USA, we can disagree with Russia, we can disagree with a number of other countries, etc., etc. So I think this is a phase of pragmatism that we see. Indo-US nuclear deal is one example. Buying S-400 missiles from Russia is another example. Buying Rafale from France is another example. So we have tried to diversify the foreign policy objectives, diversify defense diplomacy, diversify policies and many things. Okay. So today we're in a position where we also extend not only hard power, export hard power capabilities. Okay. Like for example, on the Republic Day next week, the Indonesian president is coming to India on 26th of January as the chief guest for Republic Day. And one of the items he's requesting India is to get to buy $1 billion worth of BrahMos missile, which is being co-produced between India and Russia. Okay, the BrahMos missiles. Okay, so not only hard power, there are many countries in the world, they would also like to tap into the different soft power. Recently, Prime Minister Modi went to United Arab Emirates, to Abu Dhabi. They he inaugurated some temples there. So the temple diplomacy going on, herbal diplomacy going on. You go to any part of the world today, you find Ayurveda so popular. Okay. And people are just crazy about it. Not only Bollywood, not only Indian literatures, not only Indian music. So I think in many different areas, okay, yoga, the United Nations has declared June 21 as the International Day of the Yoga. Okay. And just last year in 2023, uh, uh, it is the year of the millet. Okay, that is being promoted. Okay, that is an Indian staple diet, but that is also getting popularized. So the point I'm trying to make is the different kinds and different outlets of soft power. Definitely, that is enhancing the foreign policy and foreign policy objectives and profile of our countries. Okay, in a very positive way. Okay, uh, as Joseph Nye said many years ago, that this is a policy of attraction. This is a policy of seduction. So if you combine with hard power, with soft power capabilities, I think that definitely helps to get much more um, into in terms of smart power or smart diplomacy. The whole idea is through India's foreign policy objectives, we're trying to get earned respect from around the world, gain credibility through strength, build a viable defense policy, create good neighbor policy. I think this was started by Gujarat under the Gujarat doctrine by Prime Minister I.K. Gujarat, who stayed maybe for a year or two. Okay, but that is something like we putting a lot of meat into the SARC policies. Okay, do you remember during this COVID crisis that happened a couple of years ago? India was the only country that provided in a very generous way to all the neighboring countries under SARC, to Nepal, to Bhutan, to Bangladesh, Maldives, etc., Sri Lanka, the COVID vaccine, Covaxin and Covishield, people still remember that, okay? And so that is a nice gesture on behalf of India, because, still there are elements within these South Asian neighbors that maybe India is behaving like a big brother, like a much more in a big oversized kind of ego kind of thing, but we try to help out other people. When the earthquake took place in Nepal, India was the first country to immediately send aeroplanes full loads of blankets, essential commodities, food items, etc. So it's not that we are oblivious to the needs of different countries. So whenever possible, we try to reach out to all of our neighbors, etc. So I think that is part of our policy. Build a viable defense policy, promote indigenous weapons, Nag, Trisul, Pinaki, Agni, etc. Agni 1 to Agni 5, more than 5,000 kilometers of range. Adopt bilateralism and multilateralism, unilateralism, plurilateralism. We are part of the SCO, we are part of BRICS, we are part of Quad. So we are part of this new scheme that is being launched during the G20 summit, India, European, Middle Eastern corridors, etc. So we are trying to be on the bilateral level, but also at the same time, we are part of this multilateral framework wherever it is possible. We are part of the International Solar Alliance. We take a very meaningful, very proactive steps on climate change. We maintain strategic autonomy. But having said that, we always try to make India as the forefront, as Prime Minister always says, whether it is Atmanirbhar Bharat, Skills India, Khelo India, Vikasit Bharat, and the way we'd like to take it in the next 25 years, okay, and beyond also, so that at least we can be not only asked for being a major power, but we can be a major power on our own strength and standing on our own legs, okay? And we have got a lot of strengths. I mean, if you see in terms of foreign policy, the geographical outreach, the heritage, sea lines, historical ties with all parts of Asia and all parts of the world, leading edge in ICT sector, information communication technology in the IT levels, India's vibrant middle class, more under 300 million people, vibrant young population, diversity and cross culture, use of English language by the educated elite, use of public diplomacy, economic resurgence, think tanks, hybridization of disciplines, commitment to SARC and other important bodies of UN, WHO, etc. But at the same time, I think we should also be honest that we do have some shortcomings, we do have some limitations, because we have a lot of population, 1.4 billion people. There are still lot of corruption in the public places. Still, poverty is there in many places in the world. In India, there are two Indias. One India which is very affluent, okay, but there is also another part of India which is like certain states are called quote unquote the Bimaru states. So we need to bridge the divide between the richer part of India and the poorer part. The lack of accountability in public program, of course, there has been a lot of things going on in a positive way in terms of RTI and many other things, but still, I think we need to do that. There are still foreign lobbies that they're exercising some influence. Sometimes if there is a coalition government, and we saw that during the Gowda years, during Gujarat years, and even during UPA 1 and 2, how the different coalition partners, they were very divergent, very heterogeneous policy orientation, and that sometimes affect the implementation or operationalization of the foreign policies. We also take up as and when deemed necessary the issue-based approach, energy security, maritime security, geopolitics, geoeconomics, geostrategy, water crisis. We try to deal with Indus water treaty with Pakistan, with Ganges water, Farakka Dam with Bangladesh. These days, you must be hearing about what to do about when China is at the upper reach is trying to build a dam on Brahmaputra. So the water is also very, very important resource issue that needs to be addressed. International terrorism, particularly that came into the forefront after 9/11, September 11, 2001, and how we have also joined with other countries in the world in the global war on terrorism. Okay? Cyber security, cyber issues are very rampant. It is not 20 years ago, 30 years ago. If somebody is doing some hacking in some part of the world, it affects your computer, it affects the entire network, the financial things. The global warming. I remember when I was in US 30 years ago, when even Al Gore, who was the vice president under Bill Clinton for 2 terms, 1992 to 2000, when he wrote the book, An Earth in the Balance, okay? And he also produced a documentary that got an Oscar award called An Inconvenient Truth, okay? People laughed about it. I mean, he's probably one of the first person, Albert Gore, who talked about that, yes, this issue is very important, this issue is very serious, the issue of global warming, the issue of climate change, how the ocean water is being depleted, it is affecting a lot of the low-lying countries, okay? People did not pay attention, but today, if you talk to anybody, they say that climate change is real, global warming is in fact something that we need to pay a lot of attention. That's why you have got Copenhagen Conference, the Kyoto Protocol, Paris Accord, etc. I think it will be a tragedy if Trump 2 administration tries to withdraw US from the follow-up from the Paris Accord, etc. Because US is a big country, it's a superpower. They also provide a lot of fundings and a lot of ideas, etc. So I hope better sense will prevail and the climate change should be on the top of the table so that every country, they can put forth all their things, both the developing countries as well as the developed countries, and they can come up with that. Stakeholders of foreign policy, I said before, the elected representatives of Indian Parliament, which I said, the caucus and friendship society, electronic and vernacular media, civil society, lobby, pressure groups, educated and power kind of thing, and the power elites, etc., including the local elites. Sometimes I think they also play very, very important roles. Okay, so these are some of the things that I need to talk about. And I think different prime ministers, if you look from Nehru era, the non-alignment, the India-China things, Indira Gandhi times, Indo-Soviet treaty, that and the India-Pakistan war, Simla agreement, the nuclear test, the Pokhran-1 explosion, which she called as a peaceful explosion, 1974. The Rajiv Gandhi years, one of the things was the India's peacekeeping troops in Sri Lanka trying to bring about a rapprochement between the government in Colombo and also the Tamil insurgency in Jaffna. Unfortunately, that did not succeed. And ultimately, I think Rajiv Gandhi had to pay a price for that in his own life. Narasimha Rao regime of 5 years, the issue of globalization, how we try to deal with it. And also, I think a lot of people don't should remember that the look east policy was also heralded by Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh. Okay, and that was extended during the Vajpayee years under Sushma Swaraj, who is not from a look east to act east policy. So this is on the top of the look west policy. So I think that definitely helped us all the way from uh, Bangladesh, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, all the way Philippines. So I think today ASEAN is a very important partner of India, Southeast Asia, and also down under Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, Japan, Northeast Asia. So that all being integrated. The Indo-US relation, which we'll discuss now, foreign policy developments under NDA, nuclear weapons, to 1998. Again, when Vajpayee was the prime minister, he decided to go for a nuclear testing, which we know as Pokhran 2 explosion. Again, he got a lot of flack from many countries in the world. There are a lot of economic sanctions that was imposed on India after Pokhran 2. But he felt that this is in the national interest. And India developed a nuclear doctrine in 1999. And we chose to have a voluntary moratorium that no more testing, that India should be a nuclear power on its own. There should not be a closet view. It should be very open and very overt kind of thing. Yeah. And during the Manmohan Singh years, we tried to cultivate relations with many parts of the world. And of course, one of the big highlights of the 10 years of UPA 1 and 2 is the Indo-US civil nuclear deals, so that at least we can get a good chunk of the nuclear energies that can fulfill some of the energy deficit and energy quotient of our countries. Then the Modi years from 2014 onwards, we tried to develop relations with many countries in the world. There are a lot of crises, and during the COVID time also, we tried to develop a cordiality with all different countries, of course, at the same time, take care of own. So I think we see a gradual movement, if you see from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, etc. As I said in my first class, bipolar world to a unipolar world to a bipolar world, again unipolar, again multipolar, then multiplex. Okay. And now a lot of people say the world is like a 2.5 world, in the sense it is USA, China, and Russia playing a half game, in the sense piggybacking behind Russia. Okay. So again, I think you have to see in its totality how different countries they contribute, whether it is Canada, whether it is Germany, France, UK, even countries in Africa. I think everybody contributes in that particular way. In terms of USA policies, okay. Again, I think we have got on again, off again. Is some people used to call like love hate, love. But a lot of times, I think among mature friends, of course, there is convergence and there is divergence of issues. America is a global power with global outreach, with global responsibilities. But India is also an emerging power, a rising power, an upper tier economy, aspirational power, a competitive powers. So there are many areas where we agree. I think, but we have come a long way. But whenever possible, we have tried to disagree with USA. For example, in the 1961 on the Goa issue, Nehru disagreed with Kennedy and went ahead and trying to annex the part of Goa, which was a Portuguese colony. Okay, but Portugal was a part of NATO. So America was very angry, at least some people within the Kennedy administration, etc. In the 71 war, Russia, Soviet Union, then they helped us greatly. And we did not get sufficient support from the United States. In fact, President Nixon, who was the president at that time in 71, he sent a seventh fleet to the Bay of Bengal to intimidate India. But Mrs. Gandhi went ahead in her decisions, and that led to, of course, the birth of a new nation, Bangladesh. In the 80s, we have Ronald Reagan in USA. We have got Mrs. Gandhi, then followed by Rajiv Gandhi. That was the time when we had got in the 80s, then George H.W. Bush, the senior Bush. We have got the computer revolutions. We have got the high techs, sale of supercomputers, Festival of India in 85. Then in the 90s, the Clinton policy of engagement that, of course, got a setback because of the Pokhran 2 explosion. But later on, because of the previous splendid cooperation in the war on terrorism, one by one, each of the G8 countries, they withdrew all the economic sanctions. Okay? Then 2000 to 2008, George Bush was the president of USA. And during that time, the war on the Iraq war took place in 2003. Okay, the 9/11 2001 took place. Okay, but we tried to deal with USA on a win-win situation on many aspects, on economic issues, on aid, on green revolution, as I said, military exercises, special operations, etc. And also tried to promote our diasporic cause like H1 visa, skilled workers, family reunification, etc. So I think in the Obama years again, I think when Obama came to India first time, he openly said in the India's parliament that India deserves to be a member of the UN Security Council as a permanent member on its own right because of the high level of support that India provides in all the UN missions, including peacekeeping, peacemaking, and peace building, etc. And during the years of Trump 1, when he came to India to meet, and he attended that big meetings in Ahmedabad. And then during George Bush time also, when he came to India during the G20 summit, also I think India-US relation has gone up into many different levels, buying drone technologies, buying critical and emerging technologies in trade and commerce. So in many folds, I think the relations between India and US are very diverse. Suffice to say that there are still some issues because USA, a lot of times it looks into in a very binary kind of things, how to contain and control China, how to be one upmanship with Russia. But India, because of the geographical proximities to China, to many other countries in the world, sometimes we do have a different kinds of policies. I think so it is perfectly okay that a lot of times we agree with certain things, certain times we do not agree. But I think among friends, that is perfectly okay. That is perfectly natural. With EU, European Unions, over the years, we have got issues on the nuclear issues. They have not sufficiently appreciated, but later on they did acknowledge India to be a nuclear power. In the Kashmir issue on human rights issues, sometimes we have a asymmetrical trade relationship. India puts a lot of money, effort, energy into European Union markets, but we do not get that one. For example, I think currently the EU transaction with India is less than 1%, but ours is more. But India also has to be blamed because EU is not just 3-4 countries. We put a lot of effort in providing a lot of liberalized trades with countries like with UK, with France, with Germany, with Italy, but there are many other countries in Europe. They also feel that they should also get similar attention from India. In terms of Russia, China, and Japan, I think basically, I think we have a very robust relations with Russia from the Cold War to the post-Cold War. Russia, USSR, Soviet Union has appreciated India to be a part of Commonwealth and non-alignment. We got support from USSR during the 62 war and 65 wars and also 71 war. And the Sastri-Tashkent Agreement of 66 is one example. The Bangladesh crisis, they came up. Soviet Union then, they supported India of Indian Ocean as a zone of peace. Then at the end of Cold War, Mikhail Gorbachev, Perestroika, Glasnost, globalization, economic liberalizations. We have also tried to stick with Soviet Union. Then post 1991, Boris Yeltsin, then Putin. Putin has been there for 24 years. And I think we have a very good personal chemistry with different prime ministers, whether it is Vajpayee or Manmohan Singh or Sri Narendra Modi. We have got a more viable relationship with Russia. India-Russia defense cooperation, trade, commerce, education, counterterrorism, peoples-to-people contact. I'll tell you one personal thing. So when I was in Russia for 4 or 5 months in 2017, as a visiting professor in Moscow, I was very surprised. There is a very sizable Indian diaspora. in Moscow. I have been invited. There is a one exam organization called Hindustan Samaj. They organized a very big holy party. They have a Hindi Divas, Vishwa Hindi Divas. So I took part in that one. So I think there is a big outreach out there. So I did not know that there is such a very vibrant Indian diasporic population. I met a lot of Indian people there. They have a school there which follows the CBSE curriculum. And there are a lot of people there. There are a lot of Russian families. They are sending their kids to learn Indian classical music, classical dance, etc., etc. So I think India, Russia has collaborated in many, many different levels of people-to-people contact. Both Russia and India, they opposed US war in Iraq at the initial stage. Russia and India, as you know, they are part of the BRICS uh, grouping. India, Russia, they are also working closely to find some reforms in the UN. So I think as far as Russia is concerned, we have a very good relationship, particularly at the personal levels between the leaders at the top and also at the policy levels. Of course, we would like the war to end in Ukraine, okay? And as our Prime Minister has said repeatedly, this is not an era of war. We should find some common ground and try to bring the war to an end. Because that will be good not only for Russia and Ukraine, but it will be good for the entire humanity and entire globe. As far as China is concerned, of course, we had a on again, off again relationships, but we should not forget we had a more than 2,000 years of cultural and civilizational link. We have a Buddhist connection. In way back, you'll be very surprised. In 1931, India condemned Japan's attack on Manchuria. That was 1931, some 16 years before India became independent. Okay, India, Jawaharlal Nehru and Chow En-lai, then Prime Minister of China, we signed an agreement of Panchshil, 5 principles in 1955. Mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty, mutual non-aggression, mutual non-interference, equality and mutual benefit, peaceful coexistence. So I think there are many issues in Panchshil. Of course, the issues of Dalai Lama, Tibet, the 62 war took place. That was a big shock, rude awakening for Nehru. And then the relationship went downhill. Sikkim issue was a big issue, but China accepted in 2006 that ultimately, yes, Sikkim is an integral part of India. So that resolved the Sikkim part. In 1975, India tried to normalize its diplomatic relations. It sent its ambassador to China. In fact, the current foreign minister of India, S. Jaishankar, used to be, because he was an IFS person, Indian Foreign Service, he used to be India's ambassador to Beijing. Okay, cooperation on energy, security, defense, counterterrorism, people-to-people contact. There are many Indian students. They go to China. A lot of Chinese tourists. They also come to India. But of course, we do have issues. For example, in 2020 to 21, we have got skirmishes in Ladakh, in Pangong Valley. So, but the good news is currently there are some negotiations going place. But don't forget, not only India has undergone a lot of leadership changes from NDA to UPA to again to Modi years, but also in China, if you look at the post Mao Zedong time, from post Deng Xiaoping to Jiang Zemin to Hu Jintao to the current Prime President, Xi Jinping, I think they are also undergoing a lot of changes, but they do acknowledge the significance and importance of India. But at the same time, don't forget China is a very assertive power. They are exercising masculine diplomacies through BRI, for example, Belt and Road initiatives. But India is also not behind. We are trying to counteract the string of pearl strategies or BRI with our own Project Mosam, Sagarmala, Bharatmala projects, etc., etc. We are also trying to match Chinese outreach in Africa, also with our own outreach over there. Okay, but there are issues between China in South China Sea, its ambitions in muscularity, and particularly the border issues. And also China sometimes claims in Arunachal Pradesh, the part of China. So I think there are certain issues. Very recently, creating a dam on the upper reaches of Brahmaputra. So I think it needs a lot of dialogues, a lot of negotiations, etc., etc. On Japan, just like China, we had a Buddhist connection, cultural interaction since the 6th century. India provided a lot of iron ores to Japan in the post 1947. After Japan got defeated, Japan was in a very dilapidated conditions. Prime Minister Nehru visited Japan in 1949. Early on, in India's peace treaty with Japan, and India established diplomatic relations with Japan in 1952. And since then, I think the relationship is in the upswing in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And in the contemporary times, a lot of Japanese prime ministers, they come to India, and also counterparts from India, they are visiting Japan. Arc of freedom and prosperities. Japan is now a very active, proactive participant in India's economic prosperities. The underground metro subway that you see in India, in Delhi, it is completely funded by Japan under ODA, Official Development Assistance, under JICA. So they do forestation drives, polio eradication drives, different parts of India, they do that. Currently, they are creating bullet train services between Mumbai to Ahmedabad, freight corridors, etc., etc. Japan supported IIT Hyderabad and dedicated freight corridors. India-Japan economic and strategic cooperation, they take part in Malabar annual military exercises along with other countries. I spent 8 years in Japan. I can tell you that there is a very sizable and vibrant Indian diaspora in many different cities of Japan, in big cities, Tokyo, Osaka, Fukuoka, Nagasaki, all the different places, and how they are being so popular in terms of music, cuisine, textiles, media, Gandhi, Tagore, diversity, etc. Indo-Japan educational exchange. Our professors and research scholars go to Japan, they come here. India's age in computer science, Japan's lead in hardware. This is interesting. In the year 2000, Yoshiro Mori was the Prime Minister of Japan. Usually, when a foreign heads of state they come to India, the first stop is Delhi. Then sometimes they go to Agra or Mumbai, etc. But when Mori came to India in 2000, on an official visit, on a state visit, he landed Bangalore, because Bangaluru is the Silicon Valley of India, where you have got Infosys, Wipro, we have got all the big IT companies over there, and these days, of course, all the Microsoft, Samsung, all the big companies are there. Okay, so they tried, because India is very strong in software, they're very strong in hardware. Okay, Australia, India, Singapore, the tsunami diplomacy of 2004, how Japan helped India in alerting any dangers coming from the tsunami and the earthquake kind of things, interdependence, interconnected Asian communities. But certain issues are there, like the aging issues, the demographic changes in Japan that might also affect India. I think we need to be aware of that. The threat of WMD, weapons of mass destruction, bioterrorism, cybersecurity challenges, and of course the personal chemistry. As of today, I think the personal chemistry, like between Manmohan Singh and Shinzo Abe, Modi, Abe, between with Ishida and the current Prime Minister Ishiba, I think they're pretty good. But I think it can be built on more things. But again, the China factor, I mean, how China is going to deal with it, because Japan has to deal with China because they're very close and there is a lot of cultural affinities between China and Japan. And they live in that part of the world, in Northeast Asia. They should deal with it. And also the Trump factor. The Trump too, now that he's going to be the president for the next 4 years, what kind of policies he is going to follow, as far as Japan is concerned, as far as India is concerned, as far as the Quad or Indo-Pacific security is concerned. Okay, and during Obama years, they talked about rebalancings of Asia. In fact, he went on to say that USA is not only an Atlantic power, USA is also a Pacific power. So now it remains to be seen how Donald Trump is going to view Asia, India relations, Japan relations, Indo-Pacific, Quad, etc., etc. Because I mean, our conventional thinking is Donald Trump is basically deals with business. He is a deal maker. He is a transactional person. He deals with transactional diplomacy. Okay, he would like to put a lot of tariffs. Okay, on different parts. Okay, he would like to make America great again under that MAGA ideologies. Okay. So let us see how he does once he's in power next week. Okay. And the next 4 years. I think that remains to be done. So I think these are the things that I would like to add. Okay. If you have any question, Binod or Basir, so please feel free to ask me. So I think I basically covered all the important aspects, okay, of Indo-Japan, India-China, India-Russia, India-USA, okay. And I think a lot of these things are in the public domain, and probably you all know that, okay. But if there is any questions, any comments, please feel free to ask
Sir,
me. Thank you,
a
Basir.
small clarification, sir.
Yeah.
India has always guarded its strategic autonomy.
I'm sorry, Basir. Can you repeat?
I say India has always enjoyed and guarded its strategic autonomy.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
had
Yes.
an agreement. It entered into agreement. That was a series of agreements with USA, like BECA, Basic Agreement and Cooperation Act. Doesn't it run counter to that, or we are okay with that? Still, we can have strategic autonomy.
Yeah, I think in a way, there's sometimes in the nitty-gritty details, I think there may be some discrepancies, there may be some mismatch, there can be some uh, divergences in approaches. But I think in a broad spectrum, I think we agree on that. But sometimes, like there is a saying called the devil lies in the details. So I agree with you. There are certain times some differences here and there uh, in terms of nitty-gritty details kind of things. Okay, where each country is trying to play according to their strength, according to their trump cards, according to their own world view of things. Okay? But at the same time, I think India also tries to maintain their own turf. But I think in a broad spectrum, there is a need for synergy. There is a need for broad convergence of interest. And I think that's very, very important. I think that's can happen only if we try to keep aside the differences and at least we're willing to talk. Because unless we talk to one another, we cannot come up to some kind of mutually agreeable formula or things like that. So I think in that way, I think strategic autonomy means we are willing to listen, even if there is a divergent views, okay? That is perfectly fine, but this is our things. So maybe we should prepare like a plan A, but at the same time, we are willing to settle down with a little bit tampering of plan B. Beyond that, this is our red lines, and below that, we cannot go down.
Sir, another clarification.
Yes, yes.
As regards our land routes we have land routes on northern side, and we don't use those land routes. Those are not probably open for us. We have only, if I am correct, we can by road we can only go to Myanmar and Bangladesh, of course. So is that any issue with India not having open roads on the northern side?
Yeah. Okay. I think that is very, very important. Okay. I was reading some articles the other day that was on the agenda, but I don't know why it was not taken forward. That was definitely in the agenda of BIMSTEC. There is another small organization called BIMSTEC in which Myanmar is there, Bangladesh is there, India is there. So one of the items over there in the BIMSTEC resolution was to create a more connectivity in terms of the roads, in terms of different bridges, etc., so that there can be bigger things and maybe a train service all the way. But I don't know, why that idea did not go forward. But that was definitely there, at least but I think in the recent times, there has not been too many high-level meetings on the BIMSTEC levels, okay? SARC meets on again, off again, once in a while. But BIMSTEC is more, as you rightly said, taking care of those part in the eastern part, okay? And mostly the idea is to how we can network with one another, how we can be a more win-win things. And one of the issues, as you rightly said, is in terms of the lack of connectivity, both in terms of the digital connection, but also I think more importantly, the roads and most of the people-to-people contact, etc. And I think that can be done by having a more sustained dialogues. Maybe in this context, I think the track two diplomacy can be of help. Okay, so maybe you can pick up some people from the civil society. Just my idea from India and some members of the civil society from Bangladesh or Myanmar or some other people. Okay, and trying to things that we can do with a minimal of funding. Maybe we can ask something from World Bank or other countries, but I think we can do that. And I think it will be good for both the countries, for all those countries. And we need that networking in today's time. And I think that will be good for the northern part. So I agree with that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Vinod, Thanmaya, any quick comments or questions?
Thank you, sir. It was another interesting class of yours. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
In terms of the relations that you mentioned about with US, with Russia and China.
Yes.
And we have
Japan.
a vision to be in top 3 in terms of the economy in sometime in the near future.
Yes.
Considering that, according to you, which sort of relationship that we should more focus and why?
You mean in terms of the countries or in terms of the issues?
In terms of our growth, right? Because we have some economic targets to meet,
right,
in terms of to get to that developed stage. And for that, we need to strategize. And that means our diplomacy with different countries will come into play, whether it is East or West, or with our neighboring in the region, which you think would really help us to get there fast?
Right. That's a very smart question, Vinod. Thank you. I think I think I'm a very conventional person, very traditional person, maybe a little bit conservative in my views. Okay. So what I will do is I will go back to 1990s. Okay. The lessons that was learned or maybe that was unlearned. For example, I think from 19 independence till 90s. Okay. I don't like to blame the policymakers. Okay. I think one of the mistakes we make is when you put all eggs in one basket. Okay. I'm not saying Soviet Union did help us a lot. We are extremely grateful. We are deeply appreciative. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But I think there is a time when you all like you plan for a plan A. Okay. Like, for example, you go to an office. Okay. I think I need to do it today in this thing in a post office or in a bank or in an office or things like that. But let us say it is raining or it is very cold or there is some other problems. Okay. So do you have a plan B? India did not have a plan B between those 40, 50, 60 years. Okay. Suddenly, when Soviet Union dismembered, okay, and splintered into several republics, suddenly when the Cold War ended, then suddenly we woke up from the slumber, okay, that we made a strategic mistake. That's when the strategic autonomy things came along. Okay. Instead of putting all eggs in one basket, then we slowly and surely we learned the hard way in the 90s and in the early part of this century that we need to put eggs in different baskets so that if plan A fails, then maybe plan B or plan C. Okay? So the same way, I think the diplomacy, okay? So nothing is carved in stone, okay? So you don't know. Like some people are being overtly optimistic, whether it is that Trump is coming, so everything is going to be goody-goody, or if Biden or Kamala Harris comes, so they will do what they have to do, okay? And we have to do what we have to do. We may not get everything. I may have a wish list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? But we know the things that we can do. For example, our IT is very good, okay? Information technologies, a lot of the indigenous, as I said, if we can harness the different parts of soft power, and again, not all, not one size fits all, okay? Maybe in country A, these are the things they may need, okay? For example, in Africa, certain things they need this kind of infrastructure, certain type of people, they need pharmaceutical kind of things. So I think we can play to different countries based on our strength. So we do have a lot of strengths in terms of ideas, knowledge, in terms of sharing different technologies kind of things, even if it is very indigenous. So that might have helped. So if you add all of those things in a very cumulative way, I think definitely it will help you. The way like we withstood the COVID crisis, okay? So yes, there will be, and there are certain issues over which you may not have control. Tomorrow, who knows, there may be another pandemic, okay? But the thing is we have to be prepared. We may go a little bit down, but if you're doing reasonably okay, then I think you can cross that threshold, you can cross the bridge, okay, in a much more confident manner. And one of the things we need to do is to be always prepare a plan B and always prepared as a backup option, as a kind of things. Like, for example, when the oil crisis goes up, we went to Russia, okay, and we got subsidized oil, okay. We got a lot of criticisms for that one, okay? Because we cannot allow the Indian consumers to pay 2 times more, 3 times more, okay, because of the Ukraine crisis and many other global uncertainties, okay. So certain things over which we may not have control, but I think it will help you if you at least keep certain things in your basket, so that if, God forbid, if something terrible happens, at least you can manage that kind of things. So it will not go down the drain, okay? At least you can manage it, you can float, and you can definitely plan. So it is always good to take different inputs, different feedbacks, even if it is oppositional or contradictory. I think you need to be more thick-skinned rather than thin-skinned.
That quite helps. Just a follow-up to that. I mean, starting with Ukraine, Russia, where we can see about territorial ambitions, right, to expand. Recently, we got to hear the president-elect talking about or addressing head of a state as a governor, Governor Trudeau, and he considered Canada as one of the states of US. Is it still the mentality of regional expansion, like a physical expansion of boundaries, still dominating foreign diplomacy? I'm asking with that example and what China is trying to do in terms of their own territorial ambitions, so on and so forth. So what do you think in terms of foreign relations? Is it still...
Yeah, I think, Vinod, I think that's a very valid question, okay? I was just reading, I think this morning or maybe yesterday, an article that, look, if Trump is extending that idea that Greenland is going to be part of US, or if Panama Canal is going to be part of US, or if Canada is going to be the 51st state, okay, trying to incorporate Canada also, then tomorrow, I mean, what is good for the goose must be good for the gander. Tomorrow, China can say, well, I don't want to do anything. If Trump is validating that one in the context of Canada, Greenland, and Panama, why not I also grab Hong Kong, I also grab Taiwan, I can grab part of Korea or China or Japan or anything else, okay? So you cannot have two different yardsticks, okay? So I think if he pursues that one, President Trump, who is going to be the president next week, okay, then I think it will open up the Pandora's box, okay? Because any country, okay, they would like to expand, okay? And you cannot say this is okay for me, but this is not okay for you. So I think it will, I hope the better sense prevails, okay? Because, you know, in international diplomacy, in real politics, okay, you may have your own personal views, your bias or your world views kind of thing, but it does not operate that way. There are many variables, there are many pluses and minuses, pros and cons that you need to discuss, okay, before making any definitive judgment. So let us wait. Let us give some benefit of doubt to President Trump, okay, what exactly he meant by that, or it was just like a rhetoric, or it was just like a bluster. So I think let us give some benefit of doubt and maybe a couple of months, okay, that whether he's really serious or he just used it as a like a joke or something, or trying to put some pressure on Trudeau, things like that. Okay, so let us give some benefit of doubt. Let us give some leeway, okay, and not take things at a face value.
Sure, sir. Maybe last question in terms of, I think, the Unit 4, where you spoke about different office and the different setups and different desk catering in Foreign Office. Can you elaborate a bit more about how is that structure looks like, and how is our Foreign or Ministry of External Affairs setup different to any other countries in the world?
Yeah, because, you know, I mean, yes, I think, of course, it was not like that. I think over a period of time, I remember I visited MEA in 1980s. It was only very few people in the external affairs. I think it was based in Sastri Bhavan, because my department, Ministry of Education, was there. Okay, I used to visit that. There was also library there at that in those days. But today, I think there is a MEA has got a big building in front of the National Museum. Today, I think there are a lot more secretaries, a lot more joint secretaries, a lot more deputy secretaries. They have been given specific desks to deal with different parts. And now we have it used to, for example, USA, Canada, Mexico, Latin America, South America, it used to be like a one group kind of thing. Now they have bifurcated that one. So you have got people working exclusively on big countries, even those countries in a different sections. So I think now we have got uh, uh, much more kind of interactions and networks at a different levels kind of things. Okay, so that definitely helps us at a micro level and a macro levels. Okay, to what are the issues that they really need, what Mexico needs, what Paraguay needs, or Guatemala needs. Okay, so I think we have a diaspora division. It was not there. Okay, NRI divisions, Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, OCI cards, PIO cards. So we have got different levels and different issues like that, and they do meet. Now we have a FSI, Foreign Service Institutes. They give regular trainings. That is a part of that. I do also go there sometimes, deliver lectures. So I think now MEA is like a big umbrella, and within that big umbrella, there are many, many mini umbrellas, and they try to embed different things and trying to neatly work with that. They also work with NSC. They also work with different units. They also work with embassies and consulates. They open up new consulates in different places as the needs may be. Okay. They also work with ICWA through think tanks, ICCR, Indian Council for Cultural Relations, Indian Council for World Affairs. So I think they work in various ways with various think tanks. A lot of times I've seen Indian diplomats, they come to our conference and seminars, they listen to us, they take notes, and they also provide some inputs and feedback, etc. So I think things has changed today than what you saw 20 years ago, 30 years ago, because now India's foreign policy is overarching. That is now a part of the main course discourse.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, Tanmaya.
I was listening to the class from the YouTube live. The insights are very helpful and very useful. Thank you so much for the insights,
Thank
sir.
you. Most welcome. Thank you.
Sir, about like neighborhood first policy. So recent times, like the neighborhood in India, like take it Bangladesh, Myanmar, from the COVID times, and then like Sri Lanka. So we are facing problems with the neighborhood. So how can we uh, deal with them? Like because we have like a good neighborhood first policy, and then even in the SARC and other organizations, we try to put our neighbors first, but then we see that there is conflict of interest during this point peak times of time. So
Yeah, that's a very good question, Tanmaya. So I can understand. I think that's a very, very predictable concern, I would say. I think there are two ways of dealing with it. I think what we need to do is a policy of a constructive engagements. Okay, of course we'll engage in a constructive ways. I think that is highly imperative. But at the same time, I think it has to be a sustained diplomacy. It is not like a pick and choose kind of things, or in a more seasonal basis or a more episodic basis kind of thing. For example, okay, let me give you an example. Maldives. Okay, just last year or the year before, okay, the president of Maldives, okay, he went to China. Chinese presidents came to Maldives, okay, and they tried to make Maldives as a big hub of China as part of their BRI, Belt and Road Initiatives, as part of the string of pearls, okay, kind of thing. So we are there are some elements within India, within foreign policy establishment, they felt little bit edgy about it, that Maldives is tilting towards China, etc., etc. But we still try to maintain good cordial relations with them, because we knew that Maldives needs a lot of Indian tourists, because basically Maldives is a tourist place. Okay, so tourism is a very big thing. Okay, so if they like to rub the wrong way with India, so they might lose a lot of tourists. Okay, kind of thing. So we tried to cultivate it. So we did not take any offense when Maldives tried to have a more favorable or generous relationship with China. So we try to stay our course, and ultimately, I think that paid very good dividends. And recently, just a couple of weeks ago, the Maldives president came to India. So I think what you need to do is in foreign policy, don't expect for any overnight dividend or overnight benefit kind of things. You need to have a much more long durée view, like a long-term perspectives. You need to have a lot of patience. You need to have a lot of sustainability. Okay, and you need to give some. Okay, so what you can offer to those countries. Okay, so I think that like in Bangladesh. Okay, now they have a change of regime. Okay, with the Yunus government taking over. So I think we need to have a patience. It's not like just we are going to roll into Dhaka or trying to dictate them. That is their country. They choose their government, their way. Okay, nothing is permanent. Okay, but the relationships should at least have some semblance of normalities. Okay, and I think it is incumbent on any government in Delhi or any government in Kathmandu or Colombo or Dhaka or anywhere else, okay, to at least maintain certain minimal level of workable arrangements. Okay, so I think if we do that and we try to keep it in a constructive way, in a positive way, in a proactive way, in a sustainable way, I think that will go a long way.
Another question, sir. So, regarding our stand in the UN, United Nations, so India has been like there is so much of influence on the Indian culture, and then like many countries talk about India, like they appraise India a lot in the international stand. But what is according to you, what is making us stop to get the veto power and those kind of elements in the UN? Like the veto power or the strategical opinions that could stand in the UN?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think that's a good comment. Yes, I think if you look in terms of India's size, India's population, India's track record in the last 30, 40 years, okay, in terms of contributing significantly to the UN peacekeeping operations and in all aspects of UN, not only UN, but also the UN agencies, UNESCO, UNICEF, WHO, ICAO, I can name a lot of organizations. So India has done a sterling record. But the thing is, the real world doesn't operate that way. Japan is still not a. Japan is a very powerful country. Japan is not a member of UNSC permanent members. Germany is not there. Brazil, Argentina are not there. Egypt, Nigeria is not there. African continent is not there. Latin America is not there. So, I mean, in terms of our capabilities, our track record, of course, it should be there. One of the problem is the technical aspect also. In terms of if the UN would be serious in taking up these issues to expand, they need the concurrence of all 5 countries. So the thing is, it will be a long haul, but I'm very hopeful that in the next couple of years or maybe in the next decade or so, a time will come when all the 5 countries, the permanent countries, okay, they will unanimously agree that India should be a member, okay? I mean, United States, Russia, China, Great Britain, and France, okay? But as of now, I think China is not willing to do that, okay? Or if at all, they would like to include us in the UN Security Council, but without the veto powers. I mean, to us, it appears to be highly discriminatory because we have come a long way. We have nuclear powers. We are a big country. We have a huge population, and we have done a lot of positive things in many positive ways. And we deserve that, and we have earned that. So I think a time will come when we'll be getting that coveted position. So I think we need to be more patient and more resilient, and I think things will happen.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, so thanks for being here. Okay, so enjoy your Sunday and enjoy your lunch. Okay, so